On the Eastern Front of World War II, one siege stands out as a testament to the unyielding resolve of a city and its people, the Siege of Leningrad, a grueling 872-day ordeal that would claim over 1.5 million lives and forever alter the course of the war. Located on the Neva River, Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, was the Soviet Union's second-largest city and a vital industrial and cultural center. Its strategic importance was undeniable, as it controlled access to the Baltic Sea and housed the Soviet Baltic Fleet. As the Nazi war machine rolled eastward, Leningrad became a prime target, and on June 22, 1941, the German army launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion that would soon bring the city under siege. The Soviet Union, still reeling from the surprise attack, scrambled to mobilize its defenses, while the German army, bolstered by the Finnish military to the north, began to tighten its noose around Leningrad. The city's fate was all but sealed, its very existence threatened by the impending encirclement, and the question on everyone's mind was, how would Leningrad survive the impending onslaught? As the German army advanced, the Soviet Union's defenses were pushed to the breaking point, with Leningrad's outer fortifications crumbling beneath the relentless onslaught. By mid-July 1941, the city was effectively cut off from the rest of the Soviet Union, its supply lines severed by the German army's rapid advance. The noose was tightening, and the city's inhabitants were bracing themselves for the worst. The German air campaign, codenamed Operation Nordlicht, had already begun to soften up the city's defenses, with waves of bombers pounding Leningrad's industrial and residential districts. The once thriving metropolis was now a city under siege, its streets choked with refugees and its factories struggling to maintain production amidst the chaos. As the days turned into weeks, the situation grew increasingly desperate, with Leningrad's defenders fighting to maintain control of the city's vital infrastructure, including the Neva River bridges and the strategic Pulkovo Heights. The stage was set for a battle of attrition, with the city's very survival hanging in the balance. The question on everyone's mind was no longer if the Germans would breach the city's defenses, but when, and how the inhabitants of Leningrad would endure the coming onslaught. As the siege dragged on, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of Lake Ladoga, the largest lake in Europe, which lay to the city's east. The lake's frozen surface would soon become a lifeline for Leningrad, as the Soviet authorities began to organize a daring evacuation effort, codenamed the Road of Life. Beginning in November 1941, a fleet of trucks and sleds, braving treacherous ice roads and German artillery fire, started to ferry vital supplies and refugees across the lake, circumventing the German blockade. The Road of Life would ultimately prove to be a turning point in the siege, as it allowed the city's defenders to maintain a tenuous grip on the city's infrastructure, and its inhabitants to cling to the hope of survival. The statistics are staggering. Over the course of the winter, more than 360,000 tons of supplies and over 1.3 million people would be evacuated across the lake, a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Soviet people. As the winter of 1941 drew to a close, the city's defenders, bolstered by the success of the Road of Life, began to prepare for a new phase of the battle, one in which they would finally take the fight to the enemy. As the Road of Life continued to pulsate with activity, the Soviet military command, now bolstered by a steady flow of supplies and reinforcements, began to devise a plan to shatter the German blockade. In January 1942, the Red Army launched a massive counterattack, codenamed Operation Iskra, aimed at breaking through the German lines and re-establishing a land link with the city. The battle raged on for weeks, with both sides trading blows in the frozen wilderness. The Soviet forces, however, had the upper hand, driven as they were by the knowledge that their city, their homes, and their families hung in the balance. As the German lines began to waver, the Soviet troops poured forward, their guns blazing, their hearts afire with determination. On January 18, 1943, after months of grueling fighting, the Red Army finally achieved a decisive breakthrough, punching a hole in the German blockade and securing a narrow corridor to the city. The siege of Leningrad, though far from over, had finally reached its climax, as the city's defenders, now buoyed by the prospect of relief, steeled themselves for the ultimate test of endurance. As the corridor to the city was secured, the Soviet military command wasted no time in pouring troops, supplies, and equipment into Leningrad, revitalizing the city's defenses and paving the way for a final, decisive push against the German forces. With the blockade now breached, the Red Army was able to regroup, reorganize, and launch a series of targeted counterattacks aimed at driving the enemy back and reclaiming the city's surroundings. The Germans, worn down by months of relentless pressure, began to falter, their lines weakening as the Soviet troops gained momentum. By the summer of 1943, the tide of the battle had irrevocably shifted in favor of the defenders, as Leningrad's once besieged residents began to re-emerge from their underground shelters, blinking in the bright sunlight as they set about rebuilding their shattered city. The siege, though still ongoing, was slowly but surely being strangled, its grip on Leningrad finally beginning to loosen. As the Soviet forces continued to push forward, the city's defenders, buoyed by the prospect of ultimate victory, steeled themselves for the final, bloody reckoning with the enemy that had haunted their streets for so long. The road of life, once a lifeline, was now a highway to liberation. The siege of Leningrad, one of the most protracted and devastating in modern history, offers a fascinating case study in the dynamics of urban warfare and the resilience of a besieged populace. By examining the interplay between the Soviet defenders, the German attackers, and the city's infrastructure, it becomes clear that the siege's ultimate failure was a result of the Germans' inability to effectively sever Leningrad's logistical lifelines, particularly the road of life. This, combined with the Red Army's determination to hold the city at all costs, created a situation in which the Germans were forced to expend an inordinate amount of resources in a bid to capture a prize that was, in reality, already beyond their grasp. The siege also highlights the importance of technological advancements, such as the development of ice roads and the use of Lake Ladoga as a supply route, in enabling the defenders to maintain a tenuous connection with the outside world. Furthermore, the battle serves as a testament to the strategic significance of Leningrad, a city whose capture would have given the Germans a stranglehold on the Soviet Union's northern flank, and whose defense was, therefore, imperative to the ultimate Soviet victory. As the siege of Leningrad finally came to an end, the true extent of the devastation became clear: over 1 million civilians had lost their lives, and the city lay in ruins. Yet, despite the unimaginable suffering they had endured, the people of Leningrad had emerged victorious, their determination and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds a testament to the indomitable human spirit. The siege also served as a stark